All right, let's jump right in. We all know the big names, right? Washington, Jefferson, Franklin. But what if I told you there's a founder who built the very network that tied the brand new United States together and then was basically lost to history? Today, we're digging into the incredible and kind of strange story of Samuel Osgood. And I mean that literally. For over 150 years, American history actually misplaced one of its key architects. I'm not just talking about his legacy, I'm talking about his actual physical grave. So this isn't just a history lesson, it's a modern-day detective story. And this quote right here is where our modern mystery really kicks off. A descendant literally walks into Greenwood Cemetery with this one clue, and it sets off this whole search for a man who seemingly vanished after his death way back in 1813. But before we solve that puzzle, we need to understand exactly who we're even looking for. So why all the fuss? Why does this one guy, Samuel Osgood, matter so much? Well, because his resume is basically a highlight reel of the American Revolution and the birth of the Republic. I mean, just look at this career. It's unbelievable. He's a Harvard grad who, instead of just chilling out, picks up a rifle and leads Minutemen at the very first shots of the Revolution. From there, he's right in the middle of building the new nation. He's writing a state constitution, he's handpicked by George Washington for a cabinet-level job, and even after all that, he gets another huge appointment from Jefferson, and then tops it all off by founding the bank that eventually becomes Citigroup. Seriously, this guy was everywhere. And this just shows you the level of his personal commitment. When the new government sets up in New York City and needs a place for the president to live, Osgood doesn't just offer an opinion. He offers his own home, which was considered the best house in the city, and he moves his own family out so Washington could move in. This house was, for all intents and purposes, the very first White House. And his influence just keeps getting bigger. See, he wasn't just a soldier or a politician. The guy was a cultural and financial force. He's trading letters with all the heavy hitters, Washington, Jefferson, you name it. He's helping set up the nation's cultural institutions, and he's building its financial system from the ground up. So all this incredible experience was leading him to the one job that would define his most lasting contribution, becoming the first Postmaster General under the new Constitution. And let me tell you, the task he was facing was, to put it mildly, almost impossible. 75. When Washington took office, that was it. That was the entire postal system. Just 75 little post offices to connect a massive nation of 3 million people. It was a system that was about to completely fall apart, and it was absolutely essential for business, for news, and for the very idea of a united country. And don't picture some big, fancy government department. It was basically a startup. Osgood was handed the keys to one room with 2 employees and was told, hey, go build a communication network for an entire continent. No pressure, right? On top of that, the financial situation he inherited was just staggering. The post office was pulling in a measly $25,000 a year. But Osgood did the math and realized, based on how other countries ran things, it should have been making closer to $500,000. It was hemorrhaging money and completely failing its mission. You know, in his first big report to the government in 1790, Osgood didn't sugarcoat it at all. He came right out and said the system was, in his words, very defective. He saw every single problem, but more importantly, he actually had a plan to fix it. So, what was this master plan? How was he going to turn this totally broken system into the lifeblood of the new nation? Well, his ideas were simple, they were revolutionary, and frankly, they were just common sense. First things first, he went after the biggest freeloader in the entire system, newspapers. They were everywhere, they were heavy, and they paid absolutely nothing to ship. His solution was brilliant. Just charge a tiny fee, a cent or two, to help fund the whole network. And this wasn't just about money. A funded, reliable postal system meant newspapers, the internet of their day, could spread all over the country, creating the shared national conversation that a new democracy desperately needed. Next, he looked at the price for regular folks. It was so expensive to send a letter that he called it a prohibition of communication. He understood a really basic idea. If you make something affordable, way more people will use it. And again, this was about more than just making the numbers work. Cheaper mail meant families could stay connected, businesses could grow, and all these separate little states could start to feel like one cohesive country. So Osgood built the foundation for the modern U.S. Postal Service, a system designed to connect and inform an entire nation. But what happened to the man himself? Let's get back to that mystery of his lost grave. So here's how you lose a founding father in plain sight. He was originally buried in a churchyard in Lower Manhattan, but as New York City exploded, that land became way too valuable. Decades later, the church sold its property, get this, to the New York Times. So, on one single day in June of 1856, Osgood's remains, and those of his family, were dug up and moved to a new plot in Greenwood Cemetery. The problem? Nobody really updated the records. For more than 150 years, official biographies, even the one kept by the U.S. Congress, listed his old, non-existent burial site. It wasn't until 2017 that the history books were finally corrected and Samuel Osgood was officially found. So, when you really step back and look at it, his legacy is just immense. He's the architect of the nation's communication network. He's the first president of one of the biggest banks in the world. He gave Washington a home. He fought for independence and then helped build the government. He wasn't a forgotten founder. He was a foundational one. And that all brings us to one last, deeply ironic question. Despite creating the very institution that postage stamps represent, and despite years of people campaigning for it, Samuel Osgood has never, not once, appeared on a U.S. postage stamp. It's kind of the perfect final puzzle for the founder who history almost lost completely, and it's a great reminder that there are always more stories out there just waiting to be rediscovered.